Hello, welcome back to some MTG Vintage Cube. It's chill, and we are looking at a pretty sweet pack one, pick one if you're into Mardu like I am. I love black, red, and white cards in this cube, and we're looking at Grief and Esper Sentinel and potentially a Godless Shrine. There's also a Cathar Commando in here, so white is usually open when we draft, but right now I think I want to get this Grief. Grief can just offer some tremendous 2-for-1 value if you hardcast it, and can also be evoked in a pinch if you need to. So let's start out on Grief and see where these next packs lead. So no super strong black or white or red cards in here, but we are looking at probably the best equipment in the whole vintage cube, and that's GTE. If you've seen my other videos on GTE, you know how strong this card is. This will allow us to stay open, and I'm really down to do some aggressive GTE things. So we'll pick GTE up and see what else we can pick up. All right, so after opening up with a Grief in pick one, pack one, I'm very interested in this Restoration Angel. There's a lot of great cards in this pack. So Restoration Angel can do some flickering shenanigans with Grief. There's a Duress for interacting with our opponent that's also in our colors. If we want to go aggressive, Tangle Wire is a very, very spicy card, but there's one red card in this pack that I'm very drawn to, and it is very powerful, and that's Lelia. So I think we need to just pick up the Lelia here and then continue to see what signals get past us. Couldn't really ask for more impactful pick 1, 2, or 3 other than power with these cards, so I'm very happy here. Oh, right, and then there's a Thoughtseize as well. Other strong cards in this pack are Gitaxian Probe, Bitter Blossom, Phyrexian Revoker, but Thoughtseize is just so efficient in terms of mana cost and what you can do. One of the reasons I really like hand disruption spells against our opponent is because not only does it allow you to kind of, disrupt your opponent and take the plays that you can't deal with or are going to be good for your opponent, you also get to see your opponent's hand, and it allows you to plan out your subsequent turns based on that information. Information or withheld information is one of the key aspects of this game, and having a hand disruption spell to allow you to see what's in your opponent's hand is very, very strong. So that's why I like Thoughtseize so much, and other hand disruption spells like Duress or Inquisition. In this pack, we could pick up the Adversary. I see the Burst Lightning and the Skyclave Shade. Burst Lightning is okay. It's mediocre. The reason I like it over the Skyclave Shade is because it's instant speed interaction. So I expect the Skyclave Shade will wield. Oh, okay. So this next pack, we have some choices here. There's Mesmeric Fiend, again, offering that hand disruption and being able to see hidden information. We also have a pretty aggressive card in Dragon's Rage Channeler. And then there's also an Animate Dead. I think Mesmeric Fiend and Dragon's Rage Challenger or DRC they're okay. Animate Dead is a pretty unique effect. I mean, there is Reanimate in the cube and other animation spells. After picking up a Grief though, I'm kind of interested in seeing how often we can recur this thing. And there's potential as well that we can use Animate Dead for just value against some more, just mid-range type threats our opponent or we have in our graveyard. So I think I want to get the Animate Dead. It's a little bit of a hedge, a little bit of a kind of guess here. Not sure if it'll make the final 40, but I'm happy to pick it up here, pick 6. All right, in this next pack, if you watched my last video, there's a Pest Infestation. Now, if we're gonna play this card, it'll probably just be as a splash, really not looking to go hard into green. And right now our fixing is pretty absent, but I'm willing to pick up the Pest Infestation now. Again, another bit of a hedge pick, that if we get fixing later that's not costing us anything too much to pick up, then I'm happy to run this Pest Infestation, or at least have the fixing and the Pest Infestation in the sideboard. I do think Infestation is strong enough to run in your starting 40 here in the Vintage Cube, even as a splash. Speaking of fixing, there's a Raging Ravine and a Deathcap Glade, but I don't think we can say no to Dark Confidant. Bob going around this late is kind of a sign that, black is open and that no one else is really getting that kind of black aggressive archetype. So happy to pick up Bob. Bob's great value as long as you can get one activation with him, and he'll definitely probably make the deck. Really liking the way these picks are shaping up. Here's a pick between Godless Shrine, though I don't think we're doing the white stuff. So both the white cards didn't wheel, but Godless Shrine did. So noting that one down. I think Vampire Hexmage could be fine. I think it's a fine sideboard card against Planeswalkers. And then here we have a pick between Olivia and Young Pyromancer. I think the, least spicy pick here is Young Pyromancer. It's pretty safe. We'll probably make the deck. It's an efficient threat, can make other bodies, but there's something spicy about Olivia Crimson Bride. that I think I just want to try out. Again, we have the Animate dead. Wouldn't it be sweet if we could just Olivia Crimson Bride this Grief back into the battlefield? Again, kind of a spicy hedge pick there. We'll see if it pans out for us. But here in this next pack, okay, now we're faced with quite a decision here. So Tangle Wire, like I said, is really great with aggressive starts. And right now we have some aggressive 2 and 3 drops. I'd like to pick up some more 1 mana creatures to really show the value of Tangle Wire. So definitely a contender. And then there's also Duress. Again, being able to see your opponent's hand, get that visibility of withheld information, as well as disrupt your opponent is very strong. And then there's a Rakdos Signet, but I'm not really looking to ramp into 4 or 5 mana spells right now. We may get other, ramp spells later in the draft. Maybe we'll get some power. So I think I want to pick up the Duress here and just really have some great interaction with our opponent. Shallow Grave, kind of showing that maybe the Reanimator thing is open. There's a Skyclave on the wheel, kind of expected that one, which is why another reason we picked up the Burst Lightning when we did. And then, okay, so a Bazaar of Baghdad going 15th pick tells me that there's likely no one in Reanimator. So again, another signal, something to note down that Reanimator could be open. Now, when I draft Reanimator, what I've learned is it's best to not go quote unquote all in on the Reanimator strategy. So what I'm talking about there is like your deck is only filled with discard outlets and reanimation targets. So Bazaar Baghdad to discard stuff, your Putrid Imps, your things like that, and then fatties. And what you miss when you run that strategy, yeah, it can pop off every now and again very quickly, but you also miss just having your deck not function. And what I mean is you just draw the wrong cards at the wrong time. So maybe you have your fatties, but you have no discard, or you have no reanimation spells. Reanimator is really a 3-card combo where you need a discard outlet, a reanimation target, and a reanimation spell. And it's okay if that comes together, but I wouldn't want to rely our whole game plan on it. So when I draft Reanimator now, I try to just draft it as, another axis of attack in addition to my primary axis of attack. So in the kind of shape that the way this deck is building up, I would say I'm an aggressive red-black deck right now with a couple outs to Reanimator. So we'll see how that pans out. I know that was a kind of a long explanation, but I think it's pretty valuable to think of Reanimator in those terms. Oh, all right. All right, where's the ding-ding sound? Chill. Well, all right, let's think about this. So there's a Time Walk. Let's look at our fixing right now. So there's a Bayou as well if we want to splash that Pest Infestation. This pack has so many great hits for us. So Time Walk, obviously a strong card. Mana Vault, very strong card. And there's also cards like Ember Shieldbreaker for interaction against artifacts. If we don't want to splash Pest Infestation, Ember Shieldbreaker, we know will make the deck. There's also Custody Lich. Custody Lich with a little bit of recursion could be very good. And there's other splashable cards in here like Escape to the Wilds. So a lot of great cards and kind of some tough decisions. I think right now, because we have no fixing, not even in black and red. If I had some great black and red fixing, I may feel more comfortable about this Time Walk, but I have no fixing for my primary colors right now. So splashing a third color, again, like kind of throwing it in the category that the Pest Infestation's in right now, is kind of dubious. So what will make our deck? I guarantee you a Mana Vault will make our deck because it's a colorless spell, and it'll ramp us into some more top end. Maybe it'll ramp us, into this Olivia we have here right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass Time Walk. You can flame me in the comments below. And I'm going to pick up this Mana Vault because I know Mana Vault will make the deck, and the splash for Time Walk may just be too greedy. So that's my thought process. And then we'll see what wheels, maybe we get this Bayou or this Custody Lich on the wheel or the Ember Shieldbreaker on the wheel. And I'm happy with this pick this way. All right. Pick 2 here in pack 2. Chain Lightning for some burn, but Chain Lightning is sorcery speed. Skull Clamp, Imperial Seal, not really doing the combo deck thing. And we have Dismember. So I think the choice here is between Chain Lightning, Skull Clamp, and Dismember. And kind of for the same reasons, though, Chain Lightning and Dismember are both in our colors. Dismember is really a colorless spell and pretty good removal. Right now, we don't have any removal, like direct removal outside of Burst Lightning. So I'm going to pick up this Dismember. It'll make the deck. I know it will. And we'll move on from there. The way our deck is getting drafted right now, I'm very interested in this Braids. I've never drafted Braids before, but it could be cool to, Interact with our opponent turn 1 by making him discard, play an aggressive threat on turn 2 like Skyclave Shade or Hexmage, play another aggressive threat in Laelia, and then have options of like Grief or Braids at the 4 mana value slot. That could be good. That could be enough disruption to really keep our opponent off. The safer card is probably like Avalanche Riders potentially. There's also a Necromancy floating around, but we saw Bizarre Baghdad Wheel, so we probably don't need to pick up Necromancy this early. If we want it, it'll probably wheel as well. So I think the decision here is between Braids and Avalanche Riders, and I just kind of want to try out the Braids. I think it's kind of spicy. I don't know if it's going to make the final 40, but I'm willing to pick it up here. Strongest card in the pack in our colors for sure is Gonti. There's also an Ancient Tomb, which is pretty decent ramp. But after picking up a Mana Vault, I want to just get this Gonti. Gonti represents any card, so that's why it's very strong. And, recurring Gonti is just value upon value. Pretty happy to just get the Abrade here. Other stuff in our colors is the Bomat Courier and the Woe Strider, but Abrade definitely head and shoulders above either of those cards, specifically because it allows you to destroy artifacts. If you hadn't noticed, destroying artifacts and even artifacts and enchantments, like in the case of Pest Infestation, is very valuable here in the Vintage Cube. Oh, wow, what a pack for us. So Zealous Conscripts, Liliana the Veil, Lava Claw Reaches is fixing, and Inquisition of Kozilek. I think Lava Claw Reaches is the worst fixing in our colors, as it always enters the battlefield tapped. And that's a true cost, something to always look at with your lands. Liliana could be very good here. It's a pretty decent, it's a great planeswalker, it's a discard outlet, and it can interact with your opponent's board. So I think the choice is between Liliana and Zealous Conscripts. The Inquisition, we already have a Duress and a Thoughtseize, so happy to pass it here. And between Liliana and Zealous Conscripts, I think we can go either way, but I'm a pretty big fan of Zealous Conscripts, and so I'm going to pick that one up. I know it's just a very unique threat and effect, essentially, and there's not too many of those in the cube. Again, I think we could have picked up Lily there and been equally as happy. Here's a choice between Hellrider and Scrapheap Scrounger and, Cryptbreaker. I think Hellrider is a better card than Scrapheap Scrounger, but the 2 red mana pips is a little scary on the mana cost. So I'm going to pick up the Scrapheap Scrounger. It's an aggressive 2-drop. Again, that's what I'm kind of looking to do right now. Be aggressive. And I know I can cast it, right? It's 2 colorless mana. Here in this next pack, I don't think there's much choice, to be honest. I mean, there's a Fire Blast, but I don't really want... Again, red is looking more of a splash right now. There's an Archon of Cruelty, and I can make an argument that Archon of Cruelty is the best reanimation target in the cube, even over the likes of cards like Grizzlebrand or Iona. So we're going to pick up Archon here. We are hedging very hard into the reanimation, axis, having that second axis of attack being Reanimator, and I'm just very excited about it. Ooh, okay, so this next pack, so the Bayou did wheel, and there's also a Custody Lich and an Embereth Shieldbreaker. So I think we can pass on Shieldbreaker because we did pick up the Abrade. So now I think the choice is between Custody Lich, potentially Escape to the Wilds, or Bayou. So now Escape to the Wilds is going to want fixing as well. So I don't want to pick up Escape to the Wilds without already having picked up this Bayou. So really the choice is between Bayou and Custody Lich. We need to make a decision. How badly do we want to splash this Pest Infestation? I think it's pretty good. We do have an Abrade though, which can interact with those artifacts. I don't have a way to really interact with enchantments. So this is a tough decision. I love Pest Infestation, but I'm going to kind of commit here to Black-Red and not splash. We already passed that time walk, right? So not going to splash blue, and let's just commit to not splash green and just really focus on our primary 2 colors and fixing for our primary 2 colors. So let's pick up the Custody Lich and be satisfied with that. Skull Clamp on the wheel is pretty sweet. Don't know how effective it's going to be in our deck, but I'm happy to pick it up. There's a Necromancy on the wheel. Kind of expected that one. An Eidolon is probably the best card for our deck, but double red pips, I'm not looking to do that. We passed on a Hellrider, probably going to not play the Eidolon. We have Woe Strider versus Bomat Courier. Bomat's a little more aggressive. Not a huge fan of that card. So, but we'll pick it up. We'll see if it makes the final 40 if we need it. Right now, we're at 23 spells and 0 lands, so this could be our deck right here. And now I'm just looking to improve our overall card quality and fixing in this last pack. There's an Inquisition on the wheel. All right. Yeah, we'll take it. Here's looking at you, Braids. Yeah, so as I bring cards in, each card I bring in, I kind of need to make a cut. I know I said I wanted to try Braids, but I think the other cards in here, you know, that's probably the weakest out of my 23. Wheel of Misfortune. Also, I'm not sure I know how to use that card too well. All right, pack 3. I'm going to make an argument here. So the choice is between the Verdant Catacombs as the fixing land and Snuff Out. Yes, there's a pack rat in here. I'm not a huge fan of pack rat. I mean, I'll pick it up over wheels. And there's also a Croxa, but Croxa is very slow. It's powerful, but it's very slow. Also is a Direfleet Daredevil, which could also be good in our deck. But I'm really kind of just short on removal. Our only hard removal right now is the Abrade and the Burst Lightning. Oh, and the Dismember. So I guess we're a little bit better on that. But I love me a free spell. And what I mean by that is it costs 0 mana to cast, right? So Snuff Out fits that bill. And I think it's pretty strong. So I think I want to pick up the Snuff Out. It's going to be a better removal spell than almost every other removal spell we have in here besides Dismember. Since we haven't seen a lot of fixing here this entire draft, I mean, we've passed some poor fixing. I'm interested in the Black Leaf Cliffs. There is a Shriekmaw, which I'm usually a pretty big advocate for. It's also a normal Hierarch, but we're not in green, right? So we're just not going to cast that card. The 3 cards in consideration here are Black Leaf Cliffs, Seasoned Pyromancer, and Shriekmaw. And I think I just want to start taking some medicine now, eating my vegetables, taking the Black Leaf Cliffs. It's not the greatest fixing land, but it'll do in a pinch. All right, so this is definitely, I think, a mispick in our draft. We have the choice between Mind Twist, Eater of Virtue for aggressiveness here, and Lurrus of the Dream Den. There's also a Monastery Swiftspear, which Monastery Swiftspear could be very good in our deck as well. I think the hands down strongest card in this pack in our colors is the Mind Twist, and we do have the Mana Vault to ramp out a big twist, if you will. Looking at our curve, I kind of want, you know, we have 12 creatures, and I'm interested in this Lurrus. It's not the strongest card to play. It's kind of expensive for what it does, but it could just yield some enormous value. I think the right pick is really either Mind Twist or like Eater of Virtue. I do pick up the Lurrus here, and it's probably not right, but you know, you only get so much time to make your draft decision, and that's the draft pick that I decided to make. It's always funny seeing a Craterhoof Behemoth and Palace Jailer come around. Those are some great cards. Not in our colors, unfortunately. I am going to pick up this Polluted Delta for the black side of the black fetch there, and hope to pick up a dual land that we can fetch with it. So again, hedging a little bit here that we'll get something that we can search for with Polluted Delta. Ooh, all right. Entomb coming around again. Doesn't look like anyone at this table is in Reanimator. Entomb is one of those cards that is very ideal because it kind of solves for 2 out of those 3 Reanimator combo requirements. Remember I said you need a discard outlet, a fatty, a reanimation target, and a reanimation spell. And Entomb takes care of 2 of those. It discards reanimation target. So it really turns Reanimator from a 3-card combo into a 2-card combo, which is why it's very valuable. So I'm going to pick it up here. You saw I just cut the Necromancy, thinking that we weren't getting there because we didn't really have discard outlets. And with the Entomb coming around, now we're just right back in it. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a Badlands. I know there's other strong cards in this pack like Infernal Grasp and Ravenous Chupacabra, but we are not passing the Badlands after picking up a Polluted Delta. That's just perfect. That just made our mana, I don't know how many % better, but a lot % better. Okay, there's the Grizzlebrand. And I'm, there's some great targets for us here. Inferno Titan is defensible. Grizzlebrand, 100% defensible. I can even see taking cards like Nighthawk Scavenger and Colligan's Command. Remember, we did draft a Dark Confidant, and I do plan on running that. So, I mean, there is a chance that we hit one of these expensive spells and it costs us a lot of life. Here's my thoughts on Reanimator again. You're like, all right, chill. It's enough. So I'm not a fan of having a lot of different reanimation targets. And right now, I think, Archon of Cruelty is the best Reanimator target there is, in my opinion. I mean, you can go either way between Grizzlebrand and Archon, but I'm going to lean towards Archon. And seeing the fact that we already have Archon, I'm going to pick up one of these other cards, probably Colligan's Command. Colligan's Command is just straight 2-for-1, a lot of value, deals with problematic artifacts, can make your opponent just discard. It's just very good. So we're going to pass Grizzlebrand there. Someone else can pick him up for a sideboard, and it can be very happy to play K Command. Now, I will take a Massacre Word for the sideboard here. Sometimes it's the right reanimation target if you're playing against, you know, red or white aggro or green ramp. Massacre Worm could just be a blowout. I think since we've picked up Entomb already, I think this is going to be a mispick here. I think the right pickup is probably Direfleet Daredevil, but I pick up a Pack Rat because I'm a little nervous I don't have enough discard outlets. So that's why I picked up the Pack Rat. I don't love the card, but it is what it is. Walking Ballista versus Goblin Bombardment. You know, neither one of these are really going to make the deck probably. There's either a Virtue coming around, also a Swift Spear. Looking at my creature count though, we're only at 12, and that's with Olivia and Archon, which are cards we don't intend to really cast too much. So we're really actually kind of low on creature count. So that's why I'm going to pick up the Swift Spear over the Virtue. Plus, we already have Jite, so I don't know what other equipment you need. Recruiter of the Guard. Always nice seeing a Splinter Twin this late. Rotting Regisaur. That'll probably make the deck. It's a discard outlet, and it's just a beater threat on its own. Chupacabra versus Ashen Rider. I probably should just pick up the Chupacabra here, though I think I pick up the, we pick up the Ashen Rider. It's like I think about the Chupacabra. Ashen Rider, you know, again, it's a reanimation target, but are we going to play it? Probably not, which is why I should have picked up the Chupacabra there. So definitely some mistakes navigating this draft for sure. A little waffling going on. Drafting's hard. And if you think you get it perfect every time, trust me, I don't. It's just very hard. When if it's not clear, I cast the commentary for these videos after I do the drafting and the playing. And when you go back and rewatch your own draft and your own play lines in the matches, you see so many mistakes. And you're like, wow, I have a lot of room to improve as a Magic player. So Vintage Cube is hard. Drafting is hard. And I just encourage all y'all to just stick with it. Keep playing games, keep drafting, and you're just going to make incremental improvements every time you do. Okay, so here's how the deck ended up. You can see our curve is very low, and then we have a couple Reanimator targets up at the top. I mean, I guess Olivia is not really a Reanimator target. It can be, as long as we have other things in the graveyard. So what I'm trying to do with our game plan here is be very disruptive and aggressive with our creatures and low-cost mana value spells, and then really accrue some 2-for-1 value in the mid game with like Gonti and Grief and Zealous Conscripts. And then we have this kind of second axis of attack with the Archon, with our reanimation spells being Shallow Grave, Animate Dead here in the starting 40. The reason I chose Shallow Grave over like Necromancy is just because it allows us to get 2 triggers from the Archon at once. And I think that's very powerful. So this is what we're going to take into the league. We are going to jump straight into match 3 here in a second, which is for the trophy. And it is a spicy, spicy game. So you saw on the thumbnail, it's called Not for Cowards. We are going to be in a Reanimator versus Reanimator mirror. I make some aggressive decisions that really pan out for us. Little bit of luck going in there that the way they did pan out, but oh, it felt so good to play in this mirror match. So with that, we're going to jump again straight into match 3 for the trophy, Reanimator versus Reanimator mirror. All right, here we are, match 3, game 1, playing against Brokefish, and looks like we are going to be on the draw. And what do we think about this hand? Snuff Out's pretty good. I like the Mana Vault Acceleration. Yeah, so 2 pieces of interaction. Polluted Delta go get our Badlands. I'm liking it. Oh, okay. All right, so our opponent has let out on Putrid Imp. That's going to adjust. Ooh, and we draw Entomb. Okay, so let's think about our lawns of play here. Snuff Out. So with our opponent leading on Putrid Imp, they're likely on Reanimator. Snuff Out's probably a dead card in this matchup because most of those targets and or discard outlets are going to be black. Regisaur's looking okay, but it's probably going to get outclassed if they have anything to reanimate. But the fact that we've now drawn Entomb and we have Olivia Crimson Bride in hand means that we can Entomb our Archon and then attempt to get Olivia out on the battlefield to activate her ability and have the Archon enter the battlefield tapped and attacking. That's a pretty sweet line. We have the Mana Vault, which means we can do that relatively soon. Olivia costs 6, and we have access to 5 mana right now with our Swamp, Fetch Land, and the Mana Vault. So we just need to draw 1 more land. So now the question is, what are we going to do here turn 1? So turn 1, we can lead out on Mana Vault, and then turn 2, I don't know if we have any more plays. We can always play Mana Vault on turn 2 if we need to. What are we doing with this Dismember? So this is kind of an aggressive line, but our opponent, since they're on the play, has 5 cards in hand. With the Putrid Imp out, they have instant speed discard outlet, but I wonder if they do not have any reanimation targets in hand right now. So what we could do, and again, this is really aggressive, is we could dismember our opponent's Putrid Imp and just hope that they don't have any reanimation targets in hand. And if so, we'll get rid of one of their discard outlets. I think that's the line I kind of want to go on. So let's take that line here. We'll lead out on Polluted Delta, get our Badlands, which will be our fixing for Olivia. Thing is, we need to draw a 3rd land. So if we don't draw a 3rd land, yeah, so if we entomb our own creature and don't draw a 3rd land, that's a problem because our opponent can just reanimate our own Archon. Yeah, so this is a pretty risky line of play, but it's got like super high potential, or it could just fail miserably. So yeah, let's super aggressive here. I'm sure our opponent's going to be like, you dismembered my Putrid Imp. Yep, it's our line. Again, trying to get rid of one of the 3 pieces of our opponent's combo if they're Reanimator, which is the discard outlet. All right, that resolves, and they didn't activate Putrid Imp. That tells me they don't have a reanimation target in hand. And then so next turn, we'll be able to go Swamp, Entomb, Mana Vault, and then just hope to draw a 3rd land. Oh, they're DTing. Okay. I mean, at least they're tapped out. I wonder what they're going to Demonic Tutor for. Another discard outlet? Demonic Tutor this early in the game's kind of hard to play correctly because you don't really know what my strategy is. Maybe they know exactly what they need, but I'm not sure about that play. Okay, we draw Skull Clamp. Not really a card we need right now. I'm going to tap the Badlands here just to play around Wasteland a little bit. We'll get the Mana Vault on the battlefield, and our plan is to entomb end of our opponent's turn and pray that we draw a land off the top. High risk, high reward. Not for cowards. Flooded Strand from our opponent. Spellseeker. All right, well, I'm down for that. They're tapped out. I mean, if they Spellseeker for like Force of Will, it's going to be pretty bad for us. Recall. Oh, I'm okay with that. They can draw as many cards as they want. All right, so end of turn, we're going to entomb. We're going to go get our Archon. It's the best reanimation target we have. And I don't know what the odds are that we draw a land here. I could run some hypergeometric analysis a little bit, but I mean, it's not low, but it's not 100% either. Yes, Swamp off the top. All right, so let's slam this Olivia. Our Archon's in our graveyard. Opponent saying, what the heck? Olivia hits the battlefield. We're going to attack with her, and then we're going to target our Archon. We're only going to get 1 trigger off our Archon because our Archon enters attacking, so it doesn't get its attack trigger, which occurs kind of at the beginning of the attack phase as it's attacking. So we just get the ETB trigger here, but that's still going to be good. We're still going to push our opponent down a bunch of life. They discard a Swamp. We draw another Swamp, and our opponent's at 7. If we get to untap, that's just game over. And I mean, even if they kill our Olivia, we still have a Rotting Registar to go, so that we can play our Skull Clamp. So we have plays. All right, and they didn't get what they needed. See, I mean, I wonder if they would have held their Demonic Tutor, they could have gotten an answer they needed. I think Demonic Tutoring without really knowing what you need to get is not the greatest line. Okay, so if our opponent's playing Reanimator, I want to sideboard in our reanimation spells like Necromancy for sure. And if they're only playing like 1 or 2 creatures, then Custody Lich could be pretty good. Snuff Out's probably bad, so we probably need to bring the Snuff out. And we need to make 1 more cut. Honestly, it could probably just be anything here. K-Command deals 2 damage, probably. I mean, it would kill the Putrid Imp. Probably just take out the K command. I don't know if that's the right decision. Let me know what you think I should have sideboarded out here instead in the comments. But let's run this back. Little Reanimator versus Reanimator action. That was a super like lucky, aggressive and lucky game one for us. All right, so game two, here we go. We're on the draw again, and ooh, this hand's too slow. I mean, I don't have anything to pitch. This hand is also really bad. All right, so we're gonna mold a 5 here on the draw. This hand has Thoughtseize and Necromancy and Gonti. We're gonna put back our Olivian and our Archon. We just aren't gonna cast those this game. I mean, I don't want my Archon in my hand anyways. I want to Entomb Archon if we can. But we'll be able to turn one Thoughtseize our opponent and see what's up. And again, one of the reasons I really like hand disruption or interactivity like Thoughtseize or Duress in Vintage Cube is because not only does it allow us to disrupt our opponent who is leading on Shelldock Isle, great play, but it allows us to get information that is normally withheld during a game of Magic. And that's the unknown information of the cards in your opponent's hand. So we're going to gain a lot of information just by seeing what our opponent's hand is. And it's going to allow us to sculpt our plays for the rest of this game, or at least for a little bit longer. And so it's really going to make our, turn 2, 3, and 4 very optimal, ideally, if we don't have a lot of cards in hand to play. But just knowing what your opponent has in hand gives you a very large edge, especially in the Vintage Cube. All right, so what does our opponent got? They got Toxic Deluge, Trestodon, and Bazaar, and some lands. Okay, so there's no sense in taking the Trestodon here because they're just going to pitch it to Bazaar anyways. They actually want the Trestodon in their graveyard, so we have to take Toxic Deluge. I don't think that card's that great in this matchup, probably. So, but what we've really gained here is we know our opponent's game plan is to Bazaar of Baghdad their Trestodon into the graveyard and reanimate it. And that they don't really have anything else going on. They just got some lands. Now, of course, we don't know what our opponent just drew that last turn, but we have a pretty good idea. We'll play our Polluted Delta. We're going to fetch out our Badlands again. They lead out on Scrubland. Ooh, okay, so they play Recurring Nightmare. So because we know it's in our opponent's hand, we know that their plan is to likely Bazaar next turn, put Terrastodon in the graveyard, and they'll likely draw some sort of creature that they can play to activate Recurring Nightmare and put Terrastodon into the battlefield. So that tells us that what we need to do right now, I mean, we don't really have a lot of choice since we only have Necromancy and Gonti in hand, but it gives us an idea of what we need to do with this Necromancy. And what that is, and so they play Bazaar, and what that is we need to play Necromancy at instant speed here whenever they try to play a creature to activate Recurring Nightmare. And we're going to instant speed put Terrastodon onto the battlefield for us, and I think I'm going to blow up. I'm going to activate that before they can activate Recurring Nightmare because I want to blow up Recurring Nightmare and probably the Shelldock Isle. Yep, see, there they go. They put Library, Terrastodon, and Island into the graveyard. And let's see what they do next. We just have to hold up. Even if they pass turn here, I'm going to have to hold up Necromancy, I think. It's just going to be too much of a blowout, and I cannot risk having Terrastodon come down on the battlefield for our opponent. Recurring Nightmare is a messed up card. Okay, yep, there it is. They're casting Snapcaster Mage. I mean, not really, just to get a creature, because their only spell in their graveyard is Toxic Deluge. So in response, we're going to crack our fetch. We're going to cast Necromancy at instant speed. We're going to target their Terrastodon. And we're just going to have a lot of fun here. Now, I'm probably just going to blow up just the Shelldock Isle and the Recurring Nightmare because I don't necessarily want to give our opponent... We could blow up the Bazaar as well, but I don't want to give our opponent 3 3/3s. That's a lot. Because we're going to lose this Terrastodon at the end of their turn. Which means they're going to have a board and we're going to have a Gonti next turn. And that's not great. So I'm trying to minimize some damage here by only blowing up 2 things. And then the Snapcaster Mage is still going to hit the battlefield. I bet you they weren't expecting that, were they? I'm really glad we sideboarded this Necromancy in. Okay, because we cast Necromancy instant speed, it's going to leave the battlefield, and then as a result, Terrastodon's going to go back to our opponent's graveyard. And we're not ahead. Like, all that playline did was make sure that we weren't, like, just dead. But we're definitely behind. All we have is this Gonti and 2 lands in hand. I mean, we're behind just on board. I mean, they got 8 power on board. So let's hope this Gonti can hit something spicy. Our opponent's playing Ancestral Recall. Who knows? Maybe we'll hit that. Okay, so wow. Okay, we hit 4 pretty good cards. So first option we have to take is Thoughtseize. With our opponent only having 2 cards in hand, I don't think Thoughtseize is really the correct card to take. Then there's a Reanimate, which is pretty interesting. So our opponent has that Terrastodon back in the graveyard. We could just reanimate our opponent's Terrastodon and probably blow up some of our own lands to make our own board. Just, you know, army in a box, army in a can here. The thing is, I won't be able to play Reanimate this turn. I'm going to have to wait till next turn. We're at 17, and I'm pretty certain our opponent's going to swing out, or at least attack with a couple of their creatures. So the 8 life loss to Terrastodon is not negligible, but as long as we're not at 0, that's fine. That's a pretty interesting line to take the Reanimate. What else do we have? We have Infernal Grasp, which can just kind of help even up this board. We can kill one of the elephant tokens, but then we'll take 2 and lose 2 life. But then at least we'll have the Gonti around to maybe hold back the Snapcaster Mage. So if we take the Infernal Grasp, we're kind of hoping to just draw out of this. And when our opponent has a Bazaar, they're just going to have access to so many more cards than we are. And then lastly, there's the Collective Brutality. Collective Brutality is probably up there as a consideration because we have 2 pretty useless lands in hand, which means we can escalate at least twice and take something out of our opponent's hand and for sure kill this Snapcaster Mage. But that kind of puts us in the same position as like the Infernal Grasp. It's kind of like a combination of the Infernal Grasp and the Thoughtseize, to be honest. Just a little bit better because we wouldn't lose 2 life. But again, we're going to be at the mercy of our top deck and really just hope to draw out of it. And our opponent will still have a Bazaar to help them find, you know, they're still going to have a better board than us. So while all these cards are super interesting, I think Reanimate, while aggressive, is probably the correct line here. It's going to really attrit our life total. But as long as everything resolves and nothing crazy happens, we're going to have an army in a can. We'll have a Terrastodon out, and we'll have, you know, at least probably 3/3/3s. I got plenty of lands I can blow up with 2 lands in hand. And yeah, so I think that's what I want to do. Let's take this Reanimate and freaking just use all of our opponent's resources against them. This is why Gonti is a messed up card as well. It's much more fair than Recurring Nightmare, but Gonti's awesome. I love stealing cards out of my opponent's deck. What's sweet is our opponent has no idea what we're taking here because it's going to exile face down. So our opponent's going to go to attacks and looks like they're just coming in with the elephant tokens. I'm going to block. We need to protect our life total here if our plan is to reanimate Terrastodon. So this will push us down to 14. We do get an elephant off the board, which is nice. Our opponent activates Bazaar. Now they're looking at 5 cards. Pretty good. Looks like they pitch a Pack Rat, a Swamp, and an Ashen Rider. Ooh, okay, so now they're Demonic Tutoring. So this is a much better use of Demonic Tutor. The game has progressed, like we're on turn 5, and they know what they need to look for. Yeah, you know what they're trying to look for right now, I bet? The fact because they have a Terrastodon and an Archon and a Ashen Rider in their graveyard, I bet you they're Demonic Tutoring for Reanimate right now. And ooh, they're not going to find that one, are they? I mean, they have the exact perfect mana to DT for Reanimate and then Reanimate. We would totally, okay, so we would totally lose right now if we had not taken the Reanimate because it would just be in their library and they'd be searching it up. We just have some dumb removal spell. Oh boy. How salty is our opponent right now? I wonder what they're going to get instead. They get Thoughtseize. Yep, 2 lands in hand, opponent. Oh, that was so awesome that they couldn't see what we had and they couldn't interact with it because it's exiled. Okay, so I still, even though there's the Ashen Rider, I still want to reanimate this Terrastodon. What we need to do is build a board here. And we're going to target our own lands with Terrastodon's ability because it's going to give us 18 power. And hey, look, our opponent's at 18. And before that resolves, we'll just float some mana here because we drew the Hex Mage. We'll be able to cast the Hex Mage as well. We'll also be able to play our Blackleaf Cliffs untapped, coincidentally enough, because we only have 1 land out. So, you know, triple synergy here. That seems pretty good. I mean, we're at 6, and they do have an Ashen Rider in the graveyard. But our opponent they can't activate Bazaar right now because they only have 1 card in hand. Jite was a sweet draw. Yeah, our opponent just passed through their turn. We're going to swing with everything except the Hex Mage here. That'll force them to block. And then post-combat, we'll play the Jite for next turn. Man, this Terrastodon's doing double duty this game. Blowing up our opponent's stuff, giving us elephants. So, like, really the only 2 cards that we cast that were from our deck that were impactful was our own Necromancy and our own Gonti. And all the other cards being cast this game that mattered were our opponents. All right, well, so our opponent's got a Vampiric Tutor. Maybe they'll find something. Thing is, they have no cards in hand, so it's not like they can get a Wrath of God or something. They just don't have enough mana. Or a Dam. They need to deal with this Terrastodon. And the Jite is just going to seal the door. And apparently what they found in their deck was no answer to what we had going on. And that'll round out match 3 for the trophy. Wow. That was kind of honestly very lucky, to be honest. It was very lucky, but we took a great line of play and it worked out, right? We had a game plan and we executed it. So Reanimator versus Reanimator, super fun. I love the Vintage Cube. Thanks for hanging. Thanks for chilling with me here, and I'll see you next time.